All right, we can go ahead and have you guys sit back down, and we have an opportunity usually on the fourth Sunday of the month, we highlight one of the missions. We'll have a prayer for kind of all these endeavors and our giving here at the end. But part of when you guys give tithes and offerings, that supports a variety of things. Obviously, the services and things that we do right here, but a portion of all of your giving goes to different missions and missions partners that we have. And one of those is the Almeida Initiative, which is here locally, as we know. And since it's local and working primarily with bringing basically the gospel to the Muslim community, but also helping a variety of refugees in various situations. They've had a very storied history as an organization, and James Raymond is here to share with us this morning just a little update on what's going on, what they've, maybe some success stories, and maybe what's coming up. So coming up, James, and I will hand the pulpit. James yields the pulpit to James this morning. So
thank you for having me. Is this on? Is this working? Okay, cool. So question for you guys. I was told my speaker's notes were like 10 minutes and super casual. Like, I'm already too casual, so I'm just going to be like my regular amount of casual. But how many of you guys have been to like the smoke shop that also sells energy drinks, just for like an energy drink or a snack, or vape juice? I'm not here to judge you. Is anybody... Okay. So once upon a time in COVID, there was a Pakistani man who used to work at that very store. And he grew up as a super zealous Muslim and achieved his dream when he was 20 years old to go and work in Saudi Arabia, the place where Islam originated. And when he got to Saudi Arabia, all his aspirations fell apart because he realized that Saudi Arabia was just like everywhere else, if not a little bit worse. On top of that, people started asking him questions he didn't know the answers to, and gradually lost his faith in Islam. Went back to Pakistan, and then moved to Linwood to go to Shoreline Community College. At this point, he was happy to be agnostic, living in a land where he was free to just do what he wanted to do and not have anybody checking on him all the time. But there was a certain emptiness to that. So one day, he was taking an Uber from Bellevue back here to Linwood, and he asked his Uber driver, who's also Pakistani, you have a Muslim first name and a Christian last name. Are you Muslim or Christian? And he says, I'm Christian, what about you? And he says, I'm nothing. And the Uber driver says, do you like being nothing, or are you searching for something? And he said, of course I'm searching. I go past Refuge Church every day and wish I could go inside and just ask questions, but I don't know who to talk to. And then the Uber driver gave him my phone number, and we connected. So, we got coffee. He asked us questions like, how can Jesus be God and man at the same time? The standard questions that Muslims are going to ask you. He asked me what happened to all the people that died before Jesus. How did they get to heaven? And then we went to church together on Sunday, and then he came to my house the following Thursday and asked me, I've been told my whole life the Bible's corrupt. How do you answer that? And after showing him both the places in the Bible where it says the Bible will be preserved, and explaining why we can trust the Bible from the Bible itself, but also showing him the historical evidence for this, he says, okay, my next question is this: how does a person become a Christian? So I walked through John chapter 3 with him, I walked through Romans 10, and he says, wait, that's it? I just believe? What about, I thought like somebody had to like touch my shoulder with a sword or something. I was like, no, that's knighthood. That's a whole different thing. And he said, if that's it, I became a Christian about 3 days ago. And so since 2021, we've been investing in this guy. We've been discipling him. And now he works for us at the Almeida Initiative. He speaks 5 languages. He speaks Urdu, the main language of Pakistan. He speaks Pashto, a language spoken in Pakistan and largely Afghanistan. He speaks Arabic fluently, and he speaks a lot of the other sort of languages from the Indian subcontinent, in at least enough to make small talk with people. And in fact, and Muslims love him a lot of the time, right? They either love him or hate him completely because he used to be Muslim and is now Christian. But one time, there was a Libyan woman who was meeting up with him, whose daughter was going through a goth phase. So, and she was freaked out by this, like more than an American parent would be. So she reaches out to Shajil, and she's like, Shajil, my daughter's going through a goth phase, what do I do? And Shajil is like, calls me, is like, this woman's daughter's going through a goth phase, what am I supposed to do about this? And I'm like, all right, James, Kat, this woman's daughter's going through a goth phase. What am I supposed to do about this? So that's when James and Kat got to meet Shajil and got to give him some very solid advice on how to have input into this woman's daughter's goth phase and help the church be a resource for this Libyan woman. And I don't know where that's going to go. It's just fun, right? But what I can tell you is 2 weeks ago in Kirkland, we had a bunch of iftar dinners, like events we hosted this Ramadan. We had 7 of those, and we had one Turkish lady show up to one of these events, and she liked it so much she invited a friend to somebody from another church's camping trip, and that friend was fascinated by the conversation, and then she came over to a sort of big gathering at somebody's house where she got to ask Shajil all of her questions about Christianity. And that night, she said, I believe this. This seems true. And so she prayed to surrender her life to Jesus. You know, it's difficult sometimes when you're doing this to assess whether somebody's conversion is solid right away, right? There's lots of complicated factors about this, especially when you come from a society where you have a very pushy version of religion. So suddenly something different can be a rebellion against your past. But after continuing to sort of disciple this woman, she said the other day, they said when they were talking to her, when they kind of like finally got more into detail about how Judgment Day works for Christians, namely that Judgment Day, that all our sin was punished on the cross. You could just see this massive weight come off her shoulder and this joy take over her as she realized that God really loves her, that her future is in God's hands. So by being here, by sharing the gospel with Muslims here locally, we have tremendous opportunity. There are immense amounts of low-hanging fruit, and God is working in amazing ways that do not just affect us here, but affect us, but have a potential to impact the world globally as well. So in 2018, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia came to Seattle. His name is Mohammed bin Salman. He's the sort of absolute dictator. And it's one of my goals to try and become friends with him at some point. So we tried to figure out what he was going to be for the whole day. And we couldn't figure anything out. So it was Good Friday, 2018. And I was kind of feeling dejected. But then I got a message saying there's a heavy traffic alert for diplomatic traffic in the Fairmont Olympic Hotel in Seattle. So I went with my friend and we decided to kind of like crash the hotel. There's security everywhere. There's a bunch of Saudis with like earpieces looking around, chain smoking. And we just like walked through all this. And the hotel lobby is full of Saudis. So we just find the 3 richest guys and it was like, hey, you guys with the Saudis? They're like, no. And the other guy's like, sure, what do you want? And I said, hey, I've written a letter for Mohammed bin Salman to let him know I'm praying for him. And then one guy snatches it out of my hand. It's like, what is this? And then he reads it. It's like, this is great. I'm going to make sure he gets it. Now, I don't know if that ever reached him or not. But in 2019, we had an event, and my wife made friends with a Yemeni woman who came to one of our events. When the Yemeni woman left, she introduced my wife to a Saudi woman who was a master's student at the University of Washington, and she was married with 3 kids. And this she had to have heart surgery, and my wife watched her children while she had heart surgery. And then right after that, she found out that her scholarship had been canceled by the Saudi government, and she had a massive medical bill and no scholarship anymore to finish her school. And she was in a desperate situation. She managed to get the phone number of the mother of the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and called her. And she said, and she says, "Who is this? Oh, okay, this is who I am. This is my need." And she says, "How did you get this number?" She says, "Everybody has this number. We're just too scared to call it." So then she gets a call back a week later, and she says, "All right, we're going to make sure your medical bills are paid. We're going to and don't worry about your scholarship. I'm going to finish your scholarship, and you're going to come and work for me at the Saudi royal court." So then this woman lived with us for a month before she went back to Saudi Arabia, where we got to have lots of conversations about the gospel. And she went back to Saudi Arabia with an Arabic Bible. When she got back to Saudi Arabia, turns out her husband had left her, well, not left her, he'd taken a second wife behind her back, which is legal there. So she divorced him, which she's now legally able to do, and got a lot of static from sort of Islamic society for doing that, and then started reading the Bible. And she went to her cousin, and she said, "Have you ever read the Bible? Because I'm starting to read it, and it's making sense to me." And her cousin says, "Don't tell anybody this, but I became a Christian 7 years ago, and you should too." She's kind of come back twice since then, seems to have become stronger in her faith every time. And she is going to come back here for a month in about a week and a half, and we're going to be kind of giving her some intensive discipleship to try and help her in her position as a Christian in Saudi Arabia. So you never know where a conversation is going to lead or how much impact you could make just by being friends with some dude at your convenience store, or by a mom with her kids at the park that you meet. You just do not know where things could go. And that's why we are here. We are here to help you to feel confident in having these conversations with your Muslim neighbors that could go literally anywhere. So thank you guys for all of your support. We couldn't be here without you. And so thank you for sticking with us all this time, Refuge.